Now, former IEBC Chief Executive Officer Ezra Chiloba says that the entire commission agreed to go for direct procurement of KIEMS kits for Saffron Otimofo to provide electronic technology services in the 2017 general election. Chiloba has told the National Assembly Public Accounts Committee that IEBC Chairperson Wafula Chebukati lied to Parliament when he said the decision was solely made by the former CEO Chiloba. Chiloba claims Chebukati's submissions were misleading and meant to throw Chiloba under the bus. Now, Chiloba's grilling comes just days after the IEBC Chairperson Wafula Chebukati was put to task to explain why the Commission delegated some procurement roles to county officials. Now, that particular proceeding is currently ongoing in Parliament. Chiloba is facing the Public Accounts Committee. Let's just cross over live and listen in. Well, we'll join that particular proceeding later on, but that's basically what is happening. Ezra Chiloba is responding to that particular set of claims, especially following the Auditor General's report on the spending of the IEBC between 2016 and 2017. Let's just cross over and listen in.
Than 25 million, depending on what on the figures there. So 1,000 devices will cost 550 million, 1,500 will cost 825. That was not presented by Marijan. And I've put also the minutes in terms of Annex 8 to confirm that discussion. Mr. Chair, on the issue of the data center and backup infrastructure, on page 13, I'm also saying, making the case, agreeing with the submissions by the acting CEO, but in addition to that, Mr. Chair, I'm saying that the decision to go for cloud services at the time were because there were delays in the delivery of our own servers. And when this proposal was made to plenary, it was agreed that Saffron was going to obtain the services that will last for an initial period of 4 months for the 8th August election, and the cost estimated then was 320,000 euros, and that is also in the minutes. So if there's a claim that they were not aware, they were not involved, there's the minute annex number 9 that shows that. On the question of payment for data center services to the contractor, because the Auditor General says that it was paid before confirmation of delivery of services. I've looked again at the submission by Marijan, and I agree with those submissions. There's actually evidence to that effect that they were paid after the delivery had been confirmed. Mr. Chair, there was an issue around the contract for IBM, which was also a bit was discussed at length at this particular meeting. Mr. Chair, the minutes that I've annexed where we made the decision to go for IBM services in terms of hardware and technical support. And we made that decision in a plenary meeting after a presentation was made by the ICT team together with the chair of the committee on ICT, that is Professor Gulia, and the estimated cost was presented as $4.3 million. And that figure, Mr. Chair, as I was mentioning, in general terms, you will see the Commission approving the acquisition of IBM servers and technical support when it comes to security. But what you do not see is actually that figure of $4.3 million. And if you read the handwritten notes, it's actually there, written in a little bit more detail. So that figure I'm putting there deliberately partly because it also informs the context of the pricing. And everyone was also aware of that discussion. But I'm also saying that based on my recollection of the status of ICT infrastructure at the Commission, it will be prudent for the Commission to conclude the implementation of all this infrastructure, including renegotiation, for example, with IBM over the terminated tender. Since these investments were for long-term functionality of the Commission's ICT systems, failure to implement the projects will leave the Commission in a worse-off position. And this position is taken from the context of the 2013 election and what we also found out when we joined the Commission. So my take is that you have to go back and find out whether there is value in re-engaging IBM, there's value in re-engaging or completing the implementation of the project around Oracle and the data center facilities. If we don't do that, a year before the election, we'll be in the same situation, Mr. Chair. So I think it's important for the Commission to make a decision that will enable them to achieve value for money. And I think that's what the Auditor General is actually saying. He's saying that, yeah, there's huge infrastructure here, and if the Commission does not proceed to implement, then those costs will be rendered nugatory. So the option they have is to consider implementation. And lastly, on that point, Mr. Chair, I've forgotten that point. There was a question of Oracle, Mr. Chair. That is page 16. The purchase of Oracle database and security solution. What the Auditor General says is that he's basically giving the context of the signing of the contract, but also he talks about the implementation, what services had been implemented, what milestone had been achieved and what had not been achieved. What I've done in this unique case, Mr. Chair, as well, is to provide a bit more for context on how we arrived at the decision to contract Oracle. And this is one case where it was discussed extensively, but the discussions were only happening outside the formal plenary meeting.
The rest of the submissions we can follow very easily. So just perhaps take us to where you think there's some new ground, and so that we can conclude.
Mr. Chair, there was a decision on, and I agree with you, the areas where, so Oracle has been addressed. On the issue of a pre-qualified bidder, I think that has been explained when it came to the co-location services. My colleagues explained that, and even when I looked at the debrief on that section, Mr. Chair, I noticed that there was a bit of confusion in terms of the manner in which we procured. What I would just want to say is that we needed a specific supplier or contractor who had certain qualifications. Most importantly was you must have infrastructure for data center services. You don't sublease, because that was the case in 2013. So when I joined the Commission, I found that they had gotten on a sublease, a data center location, but the owner of the facility had actually, the person we had a contract with, had moved out the servers away from that particular data center and moved on with life. So in this case, we are saying we want a bit of security and sustainability where we know that you are reputable and you own your own infrastructure, we have our own space, and we're able to ensure that there's sustainability and adequate security when it comes to server, to our servers or data center. So there's an Annex 14 there that gives a bit of the discussion. Mr. Chair, on page 18, there was an issue of a payment. No, there was a clarification I also needed to make here, because the Auditor General says that we awarded tenders in 3 different ways. But I wanted to confirm that the tender on ballot papers was awarded only twice. One under open tender, which was nullified by the court. And the reason it was nullified by the court, they said that by the time I was signing that contract, there were no commissioners in office. So which actually technically meant that all procurements that we did in 2017 were null and void.